Coming to you live from my apartment, it's Rob Has a Podcast. And now, here's a man who is always so wrong and never so right. Rob Cesternino. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our Amazing Race coverage. Leg number 10 of the Amazing Race 28. And it was the night the Frisbee died. Jessica Liese, continuing coverage at this hour of the double U-turn debacle that took out the Frisbee Bros, alleged number one contenders for the Amazing Race 28 crown, and your first pick in the 2016 Amazing Race Fantasy Draft. The Frisbee Bros have been vanquished.
I'm too sad to talk about this.
Wow, what a downfall for the presumptive favorites from only back a couple of weeks ago. And Jess, I'm really I'm kind of blown away. You know, we've been podcasting for years about the show, and I'm almost ready to say the double U-turn might be unfair. Like I'm pretty much ready to say that.
It might be broken at this point.
It might be broken to the point where the whole show is a race. And at one point, we have like this Mario Kart type thing where teams are able to just conspire and take out a team that, oh, they're really good at racing. Boom, we could just take them out. And there's really almost nothing they can do.
Well, I would be willing to say that you're right about this 100% if we haven't seen teams come back from this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a U-turn is not a death sentence, and they have kind of tinkered with the formula, and I think this is just kind of a cycle that happens on The Amazing Race. They put a new game twist in, and they figure out whether it's too powerful, whether it's not powerful enough. They find their equilibrium, then someone breaks it, and it's beatable again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very similar to the hidden immunity idol in Survivor. Like, they figured out, first for a while it was too powerful, and then they figured out, well, we got to make it so that you can't play it until, you have to play it before the votes are read. Okay, good. Now people know how to split the vote, and people know how to get people to go out of the game with the idol in their pocket. But, playing an idol doesn't necessarily, or having a immunity idol doesn't necessarily carry you to the end. Just like getting U-turned does not eliminate you from the Amazing Race automatically.
Okay, well, I'm sure we will continue this subject, this conversation. I'm sure we will get many questions about this from our listeners. Hashtag RHAP. Also on our YouTube channel at robsawebsite.com/YouTube. So a lot to discuss today. Jess, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good? Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I know that you probably are taking this very hard because, I mean, that was really now you got to be all in on the Rooster Teeth.
Yeah, I could be a little bit in on Cole and Sherry.
I guess so. Lots to
let me have my teams.
Yeah, we'll talk through all of that. Of course, on Monday I will have our exit interview with our Frisbee Bros, Kurt and Brody. We'll have that on Monday for you on the podcast. Jess, I really was surprised that we had the end card cut to Bloody, when I'm pretty sure when I interviewed Blair and Scott a couple of weeks ago that she had said that Bloody was just friends. It was not a thing. Why is The Amazing Race trying to make it seem like it is a thing?
The Amazing Race is assuming that nobody listens to your podcast, and that is a poor assumption on
a poor assumption. No, but even Phil was saying, hey, do we need to send a camera crew out for that to cover that date of Bloody?
Phil is still upset that nobody ended up hooking up on the blind date season.
I mean, they said they're not together. Unless, do you feel like? And again, we went through this with the Survivor Second Chance. Was Blair lying to me, and that Bloody is together?
I do not get the sense that Bloody are together, but you have to remember there's a little bit of a gap between when the show is produced and when the show airs. So I think at the time that they were filming, it was still very much a thing, and it was a possibility in Brody's mind. And I think what happened there was, as soon as he got eliminated, he said, I got to go see about a girl. He's like Good Will Hunting. Mm-hmm. And he went and saw about the girl, and it didn't work out.
But why are they building up something that they know ultimately is not happening?
according to the Amazing Race, unless they get cast for a subsequent All-Star season, these people might as well not even exist once they're off the race.
Yeah, okay. All right, so hopefully we can get some more information into maybe what went wrong. Who double U-turned Bloaty?
I think you gotta keep your faith and love alive just because Bloaty didn't make it.
Okay. All right. So anyway, Jess, let's get into talking about this because this was probably the most interesting strategic decision that was made where Tyler and Corey get to the double U-turn board first and they decide, okay, that if we're going to win this race, we need to get our toughest competition, which is Brody and Kurt. We need to knock them out. And they end up using the U-turn on them. Now, they get bailed out because there's definitely some second guessing that's going on where after the fact, Tyler is like, did we make the right decision? And Corey is like, yeah, I don't know. And Tyler's like, why do you say we don't know? Don't make me feel bad about this now. Tell me it was the right decision. And so they did leave themselves open to potentially have it backfire where we had last season where it was Justin and Diana who said, hey, you never U-turn a team that you could potentially see again on the race. If it's not going to be the death blow, don't use the U-turn. But then Tyler and Corey get bailed out by Rooster Teeth, who knows, hey, Tyler and Corey are ahead of us. They must have U-turned Kurt and Brody. They worked together on that. And so, Jess, let me just talk this through with you step by step. Tyler and Corey, do you feel like they made a bad move, considering that it could have blown up in their face?
Well, considering how close everybody was, like there were just a few minutes separating all of the teams. And even though they had Kurt and Brody in the back, I think it was kind of a gamble to U-turn them at this point. But I think the only mistake they made there is maybe they should have explicitly discussed this with the other teams that they did want to keep in the race. Like, there could be a little collusion on their part. And, you know, if they reach out to Bernie and Ashley and they say, hey, you know, whichever one of us gets there first, it's probably going to be us because you guys are in second place all the time. You know, we'll get there first, we'll U-turn them, and then you guys need to burn off that U-turn, or Bernie it off, as we're going to call this for the rest of our lives. And if they'd had that conversation beforehand, instead of just kind of assuming that everybody was going to be smart enough to pick up what they were putting down, I think that is a perfect move. Like, that's a flawless victory right there.
We certainly have seen a number of these plots over the Amazing Race. I feel like famously in Amazing Race 21, we had a bit of that. We also had it come up last season where teams say, hey, let's all U-turn this team when we have the opportunity. So you feel like, though, that collusion, that conversation had not happened beforehand, right? Or do you feel... Or do you feel like that it was, or do you feel like that maybe it did happen, like wink, wink, and then let's act like it didn't happen?
It seemed like it did not happen, and it seemed like that was the thing that Tyler and Corey were like, oh, crap, we probably should have had that conversation with them.
Okay, so do you feel like that both Tyler and Corey and Rooster Teeth, Bernie and Ashley, they both all made the right strategic decision, right?
Yeah, I think they did.
I think they did too.
It worked out. I think you have to also examine the detour, because there was a reason that everybody went straight for the chickens and the coconuts, and we're not entirely sure what that reason was, but there must have been something about that seaweed detour that made people not want to do it.
Seemed like it wasn't as close. Do you think that was location based? I
think it was location based, and you can confirm this on Monday. That is my theory. I think they probably figured, you know, everybody took the closer detour, and then you're going to add on top of the amount of time it takes to do whatever it is they have to do. They got to get there and come back. So that puts them even further behind, and especially if nobody else is getting U-turned, that's kind of a death sentence, especially on these legs where everybody's checking in within minutes of each other.
Yeah. Just, did you feel like that there was any flaw in how late in the race this U-turn was? Do you think that was fine?
We don't really like the U-turns being later in the race. I think that's something we've discussed before. But I'm okay with it being here. I think Final 5 is the absolute latest you ever want to put it, because I've seen them at Final 4 and nobody ever wants to use them just because the margin of error is too slim. I think where we had the bigger problem with it was in season 25 when they stuck a fast forward and a U-turn on the same leg.
Mm-hmm.
I think where The Amazing Race runs into its biggest game design flaws is when it sticks two things in one episode. Like, you can have one game twist per episode, that's all you get. Because when you put two in, it really gives you the opportunity to double screw a team. And there's no coming back from that.
For you, which was the biggest Amazing Race shocker? The cyclists going out in season 25 or Brody and Kurt going out here? Both were probably thought to be presumptive favorites to win their season of the race.
I think the cyclist was certainly a more disappointing loss that felt like it was further out of their control. And Brody and Kurt, like, especially this whole episode, everybody was talking about how they wanted them out.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't feel like as much of a shock as it was for the cyclists.
Now, last week we talked so much about the big fall that we thought Brody and Kurt were having. Obviously, they used the Express Pass, even going back 2 weeks earlier, where they used it on that leg where they didn't want to do the shaker thing to make the letters float in the water. So they used that, and then ultimately they really did fall behind when it was they had this whole thing going on with Brody trying to fly the kite, and they seemingly lost a lot of time, and there was no big catch-up leg at the start of this. It wasn't like everybody got on a plane and they tied back up. Could you directly correlate the Brody and Kurt being far enough behind where Tyler and Corey and Rooster Teeth were able to U-turn them to going back to all the way when they used the Express Pass at the wrong point?
I guess you could make that like butterfly effect kind of theory. You could make that argument, but I think it was just like any small amount of time that they were behind, and you see that U-turn, you know they're behind, you got to take that chance.
Mm-hmm. Because you would think that they would probably have come, instead of starting this leg in 5th place, then they would have come into this leg probably, 2nd place, 3rd place, been able to skip the kite, then come in a good spot, and then potentially might have been ahead of Tyler and Corey where they could not have been U-turned. Or if they were, they might have been able to U-turn another team that was behind them to U-turn Dana and Matt, and then who knows what would have happened.
Well, if a frog had wings, he would...
Oh, come on, Jess, don't poo-poo this.
Well, you can write all the fan fiction you want, Rob. But
I'm asking about it in my exit interview.
I think you should, and I think they will tell you the same thing. They're gonna sing the fan fiction song at you, and I'm gonna...
No, they don't know the fan fiction song.
This weekend, I'm gonna find them and teach it to them so that they know it.
We'll see. But the downfall was coming. The Amazing Race telegraphed it last week.
Yeah, The Amazing Race did telegraph it last week, which is why I didn't feel like it was a huge shocker, why I was kind of prepared for it. Didn't want to see it happen. Like, these guys were my last hope to overtake you, and finally feel like I have a fighting chance in this Amazing Race fantasy draft thing, but yeah, it's not to be.
Well, the night started off with looked like another disastrous night for Dana and Matt, where it looked like that they were just not going to be able to figure out what was going on with the clue. Were you feeling like that this was going to be their night to go home earlier in the episode?
Yeah, you could tell who it was going to be between, at any rate.
And somehow they came in 3rd.
Yeah, somehow. Well, 3rd out of 5 is not great.
Well, they passed Sherry and Cole, where it looked like the first 20 minutes of I had my head hung low, like, oh, there goes Dana and Matt. They're going out this episode.
Yeah, well, I think the indicator that Dana and Matt were okay was that they weren't freaking out. Like, we've seen Dana have some pretty serious meltdowns.
I mean, come on. Yeah, it was a little slightly melting down tonight, at least.
A little bit, but she wasn't insulting anybody, and she wasn't, like, she had a point, she got a little...
She didn't go Providence Dana,
right,
is what you're trying to say.
Exactly. She got a little short with Matt at one point because she was trying to wrangle a chicken one-handed, and, everybody took the docile, like, compliant chickens and left her with the feisty chickens. So she was already in a bad mood, but she didn't let the bad mood get into her head like she has in the past.
Yeah. Boy, Jess, I tweeted about this earlier tonight that I really feel like at some point in my life, I think I somehow have maybe also gone down, taken a wrong turn, where I am spending multiple hours a week recapping how people are handling poultry. And I don't think that that was the plan when I drew it up.
Yeah, well, I think nobody expects they're going to wind up spending large amounts of their life talking about poultry unless they were born into a like poultry farmers.
Yeah. Well, do you think that Amazing Race was trying to get that Survivor Mark bump?
They were looking for the Mark the Chicken upside. Yeah, I think it's entirely possible. Except this
Yes.
was already in the can. Like this is just a coincidence.
Okay.
And these chickens were not nearly as charming as Mark has been.
Yeah. What is it about chickens that really appeals to the masses in terms of not the delicious food that they become, but in terms of how they are on TV?
I mean, they're portable and cuddly.
Yeah. What was more cuddly, the chickens on The Amazing Race or the dancing monkey?
That dancing monkey was kind of a jerk.
Yeah, he really was. He was really precocious for a dancing monkey.
Yeah, he's like, look, I've got your clue. Oh nope, I'm gonna run away now.
I'm gonna
I've
go
still
run
got
up these stairs now.
Yeah, and the racers are like, dude, I've been sprinting around all day. Can't you just like do me a solid and give
Like,
me the
come on,
clue?
dancing monkey. I know you can you can at least hear me. You know what I'm looking for.
Yeah, you're just a guy in a suit.
You're just a guy in a suit. So, that's the dancing monkey. What about in terms of the actual task, in terms of how difficult it was? Did you feel like that seaweed was more complicated or more difficult than the haul task?
It really didn't look that difficult. In fact, it looked a lot easier, so I have to assume it was much further away.
Yeah. Why did the harvest task end with the teams having to, we only saw Brody and Kurt do it, give each other a seaweed facial?
I'm guessing because they were really struggling to tie it into any kind of Indonesian export, and they're like, oh yeah, someone bought a seaweed mud mask in the airport. Maybe we can do something with that.
Like, how long did that take to do the seaweed facial? Did it add an extra 2 minutes to the task?
I wouldn't. Well, I don't know. If you've never applied a mud mask, it might take you a little bit longer, but
Mm-hmm.
it looked like it was just like, smear it all over your face and get the heck out of here.
Yeah. All right. If we play this out, if somehow the Frisbee Bros survive this roadblock or this W turn tonight, Jess, do you feel like would they be the winners of Amazing Race 28?
I think they'd have a pretty good shot, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Although we've seen their weaknesses. Like it really would depend on what the tasks were ahead of them because I think if you had something really, really cerebral, like if there was a big logic puzzle at the end and Brody was stuck doing it, we might have a little bit of trouble.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's talk about the teams that have moved on, and it was another first place finish for Tyler and Corey, and this has got to be like first place finish 4 or 5 for them. Really, just another strong effort. They've really rebounded from whatever sort of problems they were having in the middle portions of the race. They look to be locked in and firing on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, like Kurt and Brody are the team to, or
Tyler
Tyler
and
and
Corey.
Corey. Yeah, those guys. Those dudes are the team to beat. Tyler and Corey are doing great. And this is their first place finish.
Yeah.
So, racking up
Great.
the trips.
Jess, did the teams having to dive off of the cliff or jump off of the cliff, how interesting was that for you as a TV viewer?
Well, I liked that they added a little bit of intrigue to it because typically I don't believe that when you jump off a cliff you necessarily have to be like have your muscles limbered up by a buff Australian dude.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that.
Yes, you enjoyed his presence on the show?
Yeah, I definitely, if I was going to jump off a cliff, I definitely want to get all warmed up by an Australian dude first.
Yes, that would help you. That would help you be thrown into the cold water.
It would put me in the headspace of needing a cold shower.
Why does it have to be Australian?
I don't know, but it really does help.
It helps. Okay.
Yeah, it helps
All
a
right.
lot.
So we had that subplot going on with Tyler and that guy. We had the subplot going on that Cole is afraid of heights.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like I don't think Cole could swing the right way to have the Australian dude talk him into the headspace.
Yeah. Sherry and Cole still being in the race, I think, is pretty interesting. They really seem to often just not even be following like what's going on. Like, wait, what? What do we have to do? What's going on now?
Yeah, and I think they're pretty good at realizing they don't need to overthink something if it doesn't concern them. So
Hmm.
I give them props for that. But yeah, it was kind of they the race took great pains today to paint them as being a little bit clueless, even though I think they did a pretty solid job.
Yeah.
Like, I was very impressed. You know, they've built up so much about Cole being afraid of heights and not being able to do this. And he didn't even get that, classic cut to commercial shot where he's like, "This is impossible, I can't do this." He's just got up there, he's like, "I know I need to do this, so I'm going to do it, even though I don't really want to." And he did it, and it was fine.
It was fine. It was fine. Yeah, nobody really had a problem with it.
No, it was not terribly difficult.
The worst thing that happened was that Matt hit his butt really hard.
Yeah, and that is a hazard. I don't think anybody escaped that thing without a wedgie.
What's the highest thing that you jumped off of? Have you done any cliff diving?
I haven't done any cliff diving per se. I've jumped off a high dive. And there was like a smaller cliff, like maybe about half that size, that I went off of in Puerto Rico over Christmas.
Hmm.
And I did end up with a bit of a wedgie, but the worst thing that happened was I hit my head on the water the wrong way.
Oh
Got
no.
water deep inside my ear. I was in pain for 2 days, couldn't get the water out. So it is dangerous.
What did you do? You put a bug inside to get the water out?
Well, then I had the bug in there, and then I had to like put something that would eat the bug. I had to get a bird that would eat the bug to go in my ear, and pretty soon I'm the old lady that swallowed the fly.
All right. Well, the other team that I feel like it's really a two-horse race now is Rooster Teeth. They have now tied the record from last season that we saw from Joey and Kelsey now of 5 consecutive second place finishes. How do you see this story ending? Is this ultimately a tale of Rooster Teeth pulling ahead in the end, or is this the story of Tyler and Corey fending off Rooster Teeth as they are just continuing to be knocking at the door?
Well, I would have a hard time believing that we're getting the same story told in back-to-back seasons.
But if
But
it
if that's
happens,
what happens, it
fine.
happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
That could be what we're shaping up to see. Um, but I get the feeling it's not.
Hmm.
Because I think we have not seen enough of Rooster Teeth. Like, they show up and we get the obligatory shot. Yeah, they passed the task. Here's what detour they picked. But we've never really gotten to know them. Like, they don't
Hmm.
really talk about who they are, how they met, like, what are their plans for the future? What are they into? Is there a task that resonates with something in their past? And I feel like we've gotten a lot more of that out of even Sherry and Cole. We've gotten a lot more of that. Dana and Matt, arguably, we've gotten a little more of that. And Tyler and Corey definitely talk about themselves a lot. So
Hmm.
we need to be able to relate to whichever team this is that wins. And I don't feel like we're getting enough from Bernie and Ashley to feel like they're a team that I can unequivocally get behind and say this is a team that's getting, the winner's edit.
Yeah, so you feel like they're missing winner edit, and you feel like Tyler and Corey certainly have it. What about, do you feel like that, is it possible Sherry and Cole could have it?
I think it's possible Sherry and Cole could have it because Sherry and Cole have had a redemption arc. Because
Hmm.
they were patently terrible at the race for several legs. And they were kind of like cluelessly bumbling along for a long time. And now they've started to hit their stride. They're coming in third place and fourth place. It's not first place by any means. But while they're coming in third place and fourth place, they're doing things that in the early stages of the race they would have been sobbing about. And nobody's sobbing. They're just like, they've kind of figured it out. They've got it together. They know they got to do it to keep going, and they keep going. So I think that's a very compelling storyline.
And I'm with you. I don't think Dana and Matt have it.
No, I don't think they do either. I think Dana and Matt have kind of Logan and Chris narrative, where it's like, oh yeah, those guys. I guess they're still around.
Now,
They're arguing.
but for Bernie and Ashley, could they get it? There's still 2 hours left in this season. That is it possible if the show opens with them talking about their future and things like that? Is it possible? Is there still enough time? I mean, they haven't been invisible. They've definitely been visible, but I agree with you that we haven't gotten enough of their story. Could that be at the end coming in.
Yeah, we could get it on the, in the final 2 episodes, we could suddenly get a lot of, like, Bernie and Ashley's surge. And all of a sudden, like, they're all over the place, and you see them kind of starting to forge ahead. And in the meantime, they're talking about, well, this $1 million would go great with the other $1 million we made from our video gaming empire.
I don't think we're going to get that confessional.
Probably not.
Be surprised. Okay, so that we both are on the same page that Tyler and Corey, Rooster Teeth, those teams will both be in the finals. Who is the third team to join them? Do you see it being Sherry and Cole, or do you see it being Dana and Matt?
I could see it going either way, honestly. I think that's what's really exciting about this season, and it's not something that I might have been prepared to say at the beginning of the season. Like, I think either one of those teams could surprise us, and I think either way it will be a surprise.
Okay, but make a call, Jess.
I'm going to make the call just based on the narrative. I think we've seen more of Sherry and Cole. They could be being shaped up to go out in fan favorite 4th place.
Mm-hmm. The fan favorite 4th place. So you think? I thought you were going to say because we've seen more of them, you think they're getting the 3rd place. But so you think Sherry and Cole are you think they're more likely to go out next week?
If gun to my head, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we love them now, right? Like, they're awesome, and
what's not to love?
We think they could maybe win, but no, they're gonna. I think this is the point where they're the fan favorite 4th place, and we're sad to see them go.
They've been fun. They've been fun. I'll say, just to keep it interesting, I think that maybe that we're gonna have Dana and Matt be the team that goes out next week.
Yeah, I could see that happening too, because they're not as compelling as the other 3 teams, I don't think.
Okay. We will see ultimately where it goes. What else from tonight's episode, Jess?
What else from tonight's episode? I thought the tasks were kind of lackluster. I thought this really smacked of looking up Indonesia on Wikipedia 2 days before they have to set the course.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they have coconuts here. Great, fine. Have them do something with the coconuts. Do they drink the coconuts? No. They just have to pick them up and take them over there. Okay.
Across a bridge.
Across a bridge. Yeah.
The bridge was shaky.
It was a shaky bridge. Ooh.
It's chickens.
Yeah. And, oh, yeah, it's cute when they have to interact with animals. Let's give them animals.
Okay. What about then the Roadblock? Because I feel like that's something that I feel like that this is good TV, but I feel like that it's not the kind of thing where you could make up a lot of time unless somebody is having a big freak out in terms of jumping off the cliff. What do you think of that part of the leg design?
I think they were counting on someone to freak out and nobody did. And
yeah.
I think I get why it's there. Like, I do enjoy, from a purely travel porn point of view, like, let's look at the beautiful things you could do if you were to go on vacation to this beautiful country. But honestly, from a racing standpoint, if it's something you would do while you were on vacation, it doesn't typically make for a very interesting task.
Yeah. What about snorkeling?
Snorkeling is also something you would do on vacation.
The teams love this snorkeling. They want it to stay around and snorkel more.
Well, who doesn't love snorkeling?
Well, it's not my favorite thing to do.
I enjoy snorkeling.
Okay. All right. Well, Jess, we have only but 2 hours left in the Amazing Race. And so next week, it looks like we're going to get down to our final 3. Is that confirmed by previews?
That seems to be confirmed by previews, yes.
Okay. And then 2 weeks from tonight, we will have our Amazing Race coverage of the finale. And then that's it. Then Amazing Race is on hiatus for the summer. And then when does Amazing Race Canada kick in?
Amazing Race Canada actually just started filming. Yesterday, in fact.
Yes, that's what the word is. That's what the word is.
That's what the people on the street are saying.
That's what the people are saying. Okay. All right. So let's get into some of our questions. Of course, hashtag RJP or on our YouTube channel at robswebsite.com/YouTube. All right. Let's start off with Lashawanak wants to say, how are the starting times determined nowadays? Because based on the starting times, this leg, it's definitely not 12 hours later than you finish anymore. Jess, any insight into that?
It has not been this way for a very long time now.
Yes. So what do they do?
What they do is there's like a predetermined amount of time, and everybody has to stay there for the same amount of time, but they base it off of what do people need to do in the next leg. And what is the most expeditious way to get them to those tasks? Is there going to be an hours of operation concern? If they're landing on the mat at 4 p.m., we can't let them go at 4 a.m. because there will be a bunch of bunching before they get to the next thing. So let's just keep them until, excuse me, sorry, let's just keep them until 9 a.m., you know? Like a few extra hours doesn't hurt anybody if it gets everybody kind of out on the course at the same time, and it keeps us from having to rent something for a really long time.
Okay. All right, let's take another question. This is from Adam555. What's the worst that can happen to you on the race? Water in the butt or watermelon to the face? I feel like that watermelon to the face is substantially worse than hitting your butt on the water, even if it feels like asphalt.
Yeah, you know, nobody's paid a therapist to throw a watermelon at their face. Just putting that out there.
Okay. Let's go to, this is from Ryan Daniel, who says, most unfair leg in recent seasons, a U-turn followed by an easy roadblock and no navigation. No way the boys can come back from that. Jess, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that roadblock should have been a lot harder. Or there should have been another task in there. Like, throw a route marker in there. That's what Canada does, and Canada's great at this stuff.
Yeah. Okay, Jess, already getting hyped for Amazing Race Canada. What is this, Amazing Race Canada 4 coming up?
Amazing Race Canada 4. And, you know, I love me some John Montgomery.
Yeah. And he's not even Australian.
No, he's not even Australian. And he loves him some RHAP, so it's all
Oh,
mutual.
he does? Okay. All right, well, I love him too.
Yes.
I need a cold shower now. Okay, this is from Harry Schaefer. Why did you have to stretch before jumping off a ledge? Anything to that, Jess, in your cliff diving? You have to get flexible?
I don't think it's necessary, but come on. Like, did you see that guy? He could stretch me out for it.
If it's available, you should take, you know,
if there is
smoke him if you got him.
If there's a hot Australian guy up there, you know, smoke him if you got him.
Yeah. Okay. This is from The Elk Speaks. Says, where do Bernie and Ashley's U-turn rank among Amazing Race strategic moves? Who do you give the fishy to this week? Is it Tyler and Corey, or is it Bernie and Ashley?
I think it's Bernie and Ashley, although this is not an original move. Like, they didn't patent it, even though I think now, just because the name is appropriate and this is kind of memorable, I think we really do have to christen this move the Bernie.
The Bernie.
Yes.
Okay.
So henceforth, if you waste the second half of a U-turn on a team that you know is not going to take it, just so that the team you U-turned can't get back at you,
yeah,
that is called Bernieing the U-turn.
I think why they deserve the bulk of the credit here is because it seems like this was not something that they talked through with Tyler and Corey. So they were able to very quickly think on their feet. And so instead of saying like, what do we do? Like, oh, okay, if we want to if we want to see this thing through, then we need to, it didn't take a ton of quick thinking to say, hey, let's U-turn the Frisbee Bros. But I think it took a lot of thinking to say, hey, okay, so if we really want the Frisbee Bros to go home, we should use the U-turn, and we should do it on the team that won't get mad at us, which is Tyler and Corey, who are already in first place.
Yes, exactly that. It was, they had to kind of take an extra leap of logic that Tyler and Corey hadn't necessarily laid out for them to take.
Yeah. So Tyler and Corey started the job. Bernie and Ashley finished it. Okay. Zingbot Slayer says, was it intentional strategy on the part of the other teams to leave only the mean chickens for the dancers?
Well, I don't think it was intentional. I think it was just like, I'm gonna get the nicest chicken. I'm gonna get the chicken that is most compliant.
Yes. Okay, that would be Mark the chicken.
Yeah, I'm getting the most Mark-like chicken there is.
Yeah, now, just going back to this whole idea of U-turning the Frisbee Bros. So for Tyler and Corey, you know, they were very concerned, okay, you know, if you U-turn a team that stays in the race, that's bad. But isn't that really only for the first U-turn of the season? At the final 5, what was the worst that was going to happen to them?
Yeah, that's a good point. There's not a whole lot of retaliatory moves that can be made. Unless they get really, really spiteful and they just start, like, you know, you could steal someone's cab. You could tell all of the other teams some information that you're not sharing with the team.
Yeah.
Right? And you could just, like, be a jerk to them the whole rest of the time and kind of get into their heads, I guess. But, you're right. It's not as big a deal as it is on the first U-turn.
Speaking of chicken, though, I did think the other teams were Phil, can we get out of here before Frisbee Bros show up? Those guys are going to be really mad. Let's we don't even want to see them. Can we just all get out of here? Like everybody's at the mat, and then cut to Frisbee guys show up and nobody's in sight. They're just like, okay, we'll see you at the airport. We'll see you when you see you. We don't want you guys to be around us right now.
Yeah, I think. Well, I can't say I wouldn't have done the same thing.
Yeah, they weren't like, hey, good game, Frisbee guys. Like it's like, can we just get out of here? If that's okay, Phil.
Yeah, and Phil seemed to be okay with it, but I think that was also probably because I would guess at this point the Frisbee Bros were about half an hour behind everybody else.
Yeah, but it would have been better TV if they would have shown up and everybody else is there and like, oh, look who's here.
Yeah, I suppose. Actually, the best TV of all would be if it was another non-elimination leg. Like they showed up and everybody's waiting on the mat, and they're all like, yeah, good game, guys. Sorry it didn't work out. And then Phil's like, or didn't it?
Yeah, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Up at some point, we're going to have somebody eliminated. Jeremiah wants to say, a Brody and Kurt for an unfinished business season. You know what? We haven't really talked about All-Stars with this cast so far. What do you think, Jess?
I think Brody and Kurt fill a demographic that's very, very easy to fill on an All-Star season.
Yeah. Do you think, is it more likely that we would see Bloody on the All-Star season than Brody and Kurt?
Yeah, I think that is probably the more likely thing, and they would pretend to be dating to get back on.
Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, why don't we just perform this take these conjoined twin teams of let's take out the person that doesn't have a social media following from this team and take out the person that doesn't have a social media following from this team and then just have one team that's the two people that have the social media following, and that's a team.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they would call them dating at the bottom, even if, they've been broken up since 2 minutes after they got back from the race.
Sure, we'll go with that. All right, this is from Sean E. Is it better for the U-turn to be before or after the roadblock, both for entertainment and for fairness? What do you think, Jess?
I think you have to have a challenge between the U-turn and the mat. I don't care what it is, but it's got to be something that takes some small amount of skill and some small amount of navigation, or else it's completely unfair. Putting a U-turn right before the mat is ridiculous and stupid and should never be done.
Okay, we've seen it done, though.
Yeah, and it was ridiculous and stupid, and they shouldn't have done it.
Okay, George Wise, why was the double U-turn board so intricate compared to the crappy stencil spray-painted speed bump board from last week? Did you think about that at all?
They blew their budget on the U-turn board.
All right, James Crockett, did it frustrate you that this roadblock involved no skill and took virtually the same amount of time for each contestant? This didn't allow the U-turn team to catch up. Also, aren't roadblocks generally performed first in U-turn legs?
Not generally. There's always some kind of barrier between the U-turn and the mat if the leg is designed with any kind of intelligence whatsoever, and that's about 80% of the time.
Seems like people are annoyed about this. Rushmore44 says, do you think that Tyler and Corey could easily get distracted by any hunky instructors Amazing Race can throw at them? Why? Let's give them some credit here.
Yeah, they are capable of thinking with their brains.
Yeah, I don't think they're just guy crazy that any hot guy that walks along is gonna knock them off the course.
I mean, that diving instructor was a special case.
Yeah. All right. Ampernam 108. Why didn't Matt help Dana with the chickens before grabbing the coconuts? Couldn't he have spent just 1 minute in the coop to grab another chicken to hand over to Dana? Jeez Louise. Did you have any problem with Matt's chicken handling?
Yeah, Matt was not helpful. I understand about half the time when Dana yells at Matt, I understand what she's upset about. And I think
you empathize.
Yeah, there must have been some kind of rule that you could only go into the chicken coop one at a time or something. Otherwise, there's no reason he shouldn't have been in there, also grabbing chickens instead of, standing there watching her do it and saying that she should be doing it better.
Okay. This is from 11, EBQ11. Do you think that Bernie and Ashley haven't been shown much in their race because it's been relatively smooth? Besides the bad detour choice, their race has been very straightforward, unlike the rest of the teams who've been sort of up and down. Are they too steady Eddie?
Well, they're steady Eddie, but they're steady Eddie in second place. So that's like if you keep coming in second place and you're very, very consistent, you're not necessarily a threat at the end because you're just a threat to be second place.
Does it speak to why we haven't seen more of them on the show?
I
Because
think it does.
they've had fewer ups and downs.
They haven't screwed up big, and they haven't really, but they haven't really shown it anything either. Like, you usually see a lot of somebody at a roadblock if they're screwing something up royally, or if they are insanely good at it for some strange reason that we wouldn't have thought of.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Last two questions. This is from Da Vinci's Livin' 828. Should Tyler and Corey have U-turned Bernie and Ashley instead because they're more consistent? Seems like Brody's racing style could have hurt the Frisbee Bros long term anyway.
Yeah, maybe, but I think they're looking to get the competition out.
Right. And it's also that, I mean, and I don't know if Tyler and Corey were thinking this, that then, Bernie and Ashley could just U-turn any of the other teams that are behind them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Bernie and Ashley know what to do with the U-turn, as we've seen.
Okay. And Jess, have you thought about this yet? Sydney Morales wants to know, what tasks do you hope to see for the finale? Is there anything you can think of?
I would love to see... The thing that I really liked about the last finale we watched was the fact that there were multiple memory tasks.
Adirondack chairs.
Yeah, you show up and it's like, Adirondack chairs and flags and fire helmets, and I liked that every single thing they had to do had some kind of memory component. What I would like to not see is a lot of, taxi luck and, like, getting between the locations drama. I would like to not see one team pull ahead and stay ahead for the entire episode.
Okay. Jess, we talked about how the finale is but 2 weeks from tonight. Also coming in May to CBS is the special Amazing Race edition of The Price is Right. Are you fired up for that?
Well, I think anybody that's a fan of this show should be fired up for this, because if you just think in your head about all the teams you'd want to see, like from recent seasons of the show, you're going to get a lot of those teams, and it's very much like fan favorites, and I think people that are on the show, like the actual contestants, are going to be very excited with everything that's going on, and the racers themselves are excited about the outcomes. So I think we're in for a really big treat, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to be a little cynical about it.
I'm not cynical about it. I do note that it's going to be a little bit of a disappointment because they saved playing Plinko with Rachel Riley for the Big Brother edition. And so we're not getting any Plinko on this episode, I would guess.
Okay. All right. Well, we will see what's going on. So, yeah, we'll talk it through. I don't know exactly how we're going to do podcast coverage of all that. I would like to cover everything in some way. I think the order is Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race that week of the week before Memorial Day. It also happens to be the week I'm going to be traveling to Run It Up Reno in Jason Somerville's event in Reno. If you want to find out more about that, you can go to runitupreno.com. But Jess, I may need you to take the reins on an Amazing Race recap of The Price is Right.
All right. Well, I'm fleeing the country on the 27th, so we got to do it before then.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get the calendar out. We'll figure it all out before then. Okay. Exit interview coming on Monday with the Frisbee Bros. We will get to the bottom of everything and Bloaty and all that good stuff. Of course, if you missed it earlier tonight, the great Derek Levasseur was on with me to talk about everything going on in Big Brother Canada, and that was very fun. Also, we had a very interesting Tyson cast. Tyson Apostle joined me for the recap and the voicemails, in addition to Survivor Know-It-Alls. Exit interview, plus, just in case there wasn't enough podcasting this week, I'm going to have a bonus podcast with Jordan Parhar coming on Saturday. If you want to get voicemails in for that podcast, you can go to robswebsite.com/voicemail. Jess, what's a hashtag for tonight?
I like complacent chicken.
Complacent chicken. Okay.
Or compliant chicken, I think, is what I used. So
So
compliant.
what do you want to use?
Let's use compliant chicken.
Compliant chicken. There you go. And that's going to be the hashtag. Of course, thanks so much to Scott St. Pierre behind the scenes. Thanks to all of you who watched us live tonight. We'll be back with the next to last episode of The Amazing Race 1 week from tonight, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time, and that's going to be first Amazing Race episode in May, Jess.
I can't believe it's May already.
You can't believe it. Time is flying as we go through it like a chicken. May 6th, next Friday night. Looking forward to that. Have a good one, everybody. Take care.